Hi everyone, and welcome to the Publishing Performance Show. I'm here with Rodney Miles, who is the author of the Book Dude series, and he's also a self-publishing consultant, and he's worked on over 300 book projects, so he really knows his stuff. So thanks for joining us, Rodney.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me here. I'm grateful.
No problem. Well, tell me a bit about your background and what inspired you to create the Book Dude's Guide to Self-Publishing series.
Sure. In a nutshell, I think I always wanted to be a writer. And talk about this in my book as a little background. I've had a love affair with books all my life, even as a kid. I often say when I was little, my mom would read books at red lights and every opportunity she had, and later found it was a ready resource for really anything I wanted to find out about. So that continued throughout. In fact, I gave books of my own choosing more of a priority through school than the ones they try to force on you, and then go back after school and revisit the ones that were recommended to see why. But I got sort of discouraged along the way. I think anyone looking at a career in the arts, there's a fragility to that sometimes. It's not necessarily encouraged unless you're from a family of professional artists, perhaps. So I just really wanted my own business coming out of school, and did that up until about the age of 40, where the real estate market in Florida collapsed. So I had to make a decision. And my father encouraged me to sideline as a writer. Back then, this is about 15 years ago now, 14 years ago, there was a platform called Elance, which is now Upwork. There were two platforms back then, freelancer.com and elance.com. And I just started writing at a penny a word. And it was very, you remember those times just as much as the successes and the struggle and the learning and trying to juggle things. But I loved it. I loved it. I really gravitated to it. I took to it. I think within 6 months or so, I had a couple very regular clients, one in particular in Australia, where I was ghostwriting. And then they asked me to edit some of the other works. And then they asked me to run their little writing department. So I got to learn self-publishing very hard and fast, and I just loved it. I wanted to, once I mastered ebooks and paperbacks, I was very excited about making hardcovers, and it just kept, even to this day, get a lot of joy out of watching current news and things that are happening. So that developed 14 or 15 years to where I handle what I call custom projects. So I'll meet with someone who has a book in mind and find out their goals, their budget, their timeline, and then get back with them in 24 hours with a custom project. I no longer do just flat fee services. But more than that, I'm now also very interested in my book, The Modern Author, because that, I think, gets you to level zero, where you're on a level playing field, even with the big five publishers, in terms of what's possible for you in your book. And it can save you lots of headache and lots of money, and sometimes be the difference between publishing or not publishing. And I think even more basic than that is I have an underlying belief that everyone has a story, and everyone should write a book. Actually, that's not to get more services or anything. That's because you're contributing to what I call the great library. So, and I often say, well, just imagine, if your great grandfather had written a memoir, how amazing that would be for you to read today. So all that information helps the civilization, I think.
Yeah, definitely. Everyone's got a book in them.
Yeah.
Now, the book's called The Book Dude's Guide. So really cool name. And I think it kind of sums you up a little bit, The Book Dude. But it's called The Modern Author. And it is a series of books. So there's got 3 books in the series, but the first one is The Modern Author. Now, what's that book about, and it's aimed at beginners or people who are just starting out, isn't it?
Yeah. I found in my last 14, 15 years that a lot of people I met, first-time authors in particular, would have questions that were in common. They would run into things, not so much anymore, although it still exists. But if you go back 5 or 10 years, there were a lot of cases where I found people were being taken advantage of. And this is what I call in the book the ignorance gap.
Right.
So a perfect example would be, let's say, the word publishing, right? If when I was a kid, a publishing deal meant one thing. It meant you go back 20, 30, 40 years, it was quite hard to get a publishing deal, right? There was no self-publishing. There was gatekeepers. You had the large publishers. You had some independent publishers, perhaps, but they all kind of operated the same way. You could self-publish at great expense. It generally meant back then that you'd have to come up with many thousands of dollars just to do a print run, for example. So you would print books in advance of the run. It's funny. I think Hemingway's first book, for example, the publisher agreed to a small print run, and then for his next book, they agreed to like 50,000 copies, in advance, because that's an investment cash layout for the publisher. So, publishing deal used to mean an advance of thousands of dollars. You get hand holding through the process. There's generally a developmental editor on staff, marketing department, and they would guide you through, and you'd end up on planes and hotels, book signings, and drinking champagne and making all kinds of money and bragging at your high school reunion, right? So it's changed drastically with self-publishing, but I found, particularly 5 years ago, it still exists a little bit, and it still is meaningful today, because I think when you get into this, and I encourage everybody to publish, you should understand what a traditional publisher is, what self-publishing means, and then there's other types of publishers. There's hybrid publishing, service publishing. It's all a matter of how the arrangement is put together. And you can see, if you, for example, a client came to me and said, I publisher's interested in my book. I gently asked, how much cash do they want up front? Because that question alone will kind of tell you, not that they're rip-off artists necessarily or anything like that, but it will tell you what kind of publisher you're probably dealing with and what you should be aware of. You imagine generally the more, unless the publisher has a vested interest in your book, where they're sharing rights and royalties to some degree, they may not have a deep interest in the success of your book once it's launched, which is, again, not necessarily good or bad. It can be, but people should be aware of it. And that's a good example of preparedness. And I think in my book, it's probably a 3-4 hour read, can really bring you up to speed so that you're safe.
Yeah. So you talk about that ignorance gap with where people are maybe just starting out writing a book and they don't know some of those terms that you've just talked about. I see that all the time. Publishing is quite a murky world. I was just speaking to an expert who does book proposals, and there are so many things in book proposals that I didn't know about. And obviously when it comes to self-publishing, that's not even needed. So what are one or two of the key gaps in people's ignorance, or that they don't know about the self-publishing, that you think that they should be aware of before getting started?
Sure, absolutely. Well, we mentioned publishing. You mentioned book proposals, and that's a good one, actually. For your listeners, if they don't know, in the traditional publishing world, a book proposal could be as much as 50,000 words, 50 pages. They could be quite lengthy, and it would include certain things like a sample chapter or two. Includes a bit of a market analysis. It includes plans for marketing. It's basically a business plan for your book. And it's very interesting. One of my favorite, if not my favorite, current modern traditionally published author is a guy named Eric Larson, who wrote Dead Wake. He wrote The Devil in the White City, which I think is his best book. But he still does, according to caught him on a video saying, he still does a full book proposal with every book, which I thought was very interesting. That's a lot of effort. Yeah, he does it himself. He may be assisted. I'm sure he's traditionally set up. So I'm sure he's got a literary agent, an editor that he keeps close, and a publishing deal, at least one publishing deal. I thought that was interesting. He still goes through the effort of that large, full-form book proposal. So today, what's really fabulous is there are some things that have evolved into self-publishing that came out of best practices of traditional publishing. One of those is the book proposal. I found, and I have to give credit to publishizer.com with a Z. Many years ago, I found their site, got to know Lee Constantine a little bit from there, and they have a kind of a crowdfunding format for finding a publisher. It's a very innovative platform. And one of the steps they recommend is the book proposal. Now, but they recommend a short form of it. And I recommend this with every title as well, because for instead of 50,000 words, in about 1,500 words, and if you go to their site and follow their recommended recipe for what I call a short form book proposal, it's really critical. In fact, it might be, if self-published authors' primary mistakes are generally cover, editing, and marketing would be the really big one. The short form book proposal, for about 2 or 3 hours of work, will enlighten you so much as to your book and where it fits in the market, what comparable books are. It even starts to inform you as to pricing strategies and things like that. So that's a good example, I think, Teddy, of how some things have evolved,
Yeah,
and really for the better in many
yeah,
ways.
definitely. So in your book, you've got in the modern author, the first book, it goes through like some of the main concepts of self-publishing and the things you need to know in order to get started. So could you sort of step by step go through those sort of the summary of what those steps are that people need to know?
Yeah, sure. I learned in my professional life, I guess. I'm 54 now, and I wasn't necessarily a fabulous CEO. I wasn't necessarily great at certain things, but I did find that one thing I was very good at was systemizing things. So it made me a very good number two man, for example, in a brokerage or whatever I happen to be doing. But maybe a little bit of leadership and understanding the objectives of that translated when I got into my business to help me as a self-publishing consultant, as a book collaborator. I really wanted to learn the process and systemize the publishing process. Well, for the first part of my career, and by the way, today I would encapsulate that as 3 stages in the self-publishing process. I call it product, platform, and publicity. And the product is the book. The platform is your author business with your infrastructure and some getting your book selling reader by reader. The publicity isn't just, it's a bit of a misnomer because in my view, it includes some strategic growth strategies, but it's basically jump starting temporary spurts of activity to give your career and book sales, your goodwill, your list growth, all those fundamental things a boost. But in the first stage, in the product, that's what I specialized in for many years. And I broke that into 10, I want to say stages, but it's probably more, they're not necessarily linear stages. A lot of these things occur at the same time. 10 was probably a mistake. I, and that's fascinating. You know, when you write a book, it makes you reevaluate your own expertise. And I've watched
Yeah,
it happen in business books. It's amazing. It's fabulous. I've watched it happen in memoir, where people have sort of a psychological catharsis. You know, they have these epiphanies about their own existence, which is really beautiful. And if the
yeah.
process goes well, that's one of the benefits. So one of those benefits for me was codifying this process. And the 10 stages I have in there are planning, writing, editing, design, marketing, production, distribution, pre-launch, launch, and post-launch. So before you give up, it's not as bad as it sounds. Production, for example, there's some pre-planning that goes into how that stage is going to take place. It's basically preparing your files and your book description, everything you'll need so when you do log in and upload your book, it's all ready and it's professional. Versus, you know, that could be half a day, that could be several
Yeah.
days. Pre-launch could be, a lot of authors don't do pre-launch at all. And again, not good or bad. It's all a matter of what your objectives are, what your goals are
What do
for
you mean by the
publishing.
pre-launch? What happens in it?
That's when ideally your book is ready, and a book should follow. This is another thing that can go really wrong. A lot of authors will start out, they'll write a chapter and they'll start sharing it. I say don't do that. Write it for yourself. In a perfect world, you'd write a whole draft, even if it's sloppy. As one editor said, I can't edit a blank page, but I can edit a page of crap. So you don't have your first draft is just that. It's a first draft. It can get corrected, developed, and polished. That's part of the process. So when you get to a point where you've got a first draft and it's fairly polished, and let's say you're working with an editor and a designer and you're kind of happy with it, a lot of authors go right to launch right there, or they'll do what's called a soft launch. They might not necessarily be looking to build a career as an author. They might want to publish a book to jumpstart a career as a speaker, or add to their authority in their field so they can charge better rates, or as a book is a miraculous catalyst to finding media opportunities and finding new clients and engaging with people in a way that you can't really engage with them otherwise. It can also become the hub of your marketing. So, but if you are doing sort of a launch and you can afford the time, I always recommend a pre-launch period of, say, I think 3 months is probably, I would say 6 months is ideal. But for most people, 1 to 3 months, you can accomplish a whole lot. That'll make a big difference in your book. And a lot, it's neat, Teddy, you ask about the pre-launch, because that's probably the most neglected of those 10 stages.
Yeah. So what do you actually, what are the activities you do in the pre-launch? Because it sounds like you're saying the book's live, but you're not launching it. Just a quick shout out to all the romance authors out there. Now, if you're tired of shouting into the void every time you launch a brand new romance book, then let myromancereads.com do the shouting for you. They have a list of over 18,000 romance readers who love getting books when they're on discounts or on the free promotion. And it goes into their inbox every single day. It's got an amazing open rate, and every promotion gets on average over 600 clicks. That's a lot of new readers for your new series of romance books. So head to myromancereads.com where you can sign up today.
Right. Well, it may or may not be live. We may set it up as a pre-order through the pre-launch so people can pre-order. That depends. That's a strategic decision. But some of the things you can do in the pre-launch include beta readers.
Yep.
Fantastic opportunity to have beta for a number of reasons. Advanced reviews from friends and colleagues, editorial reviews, gives you time to send it out to bloggers and newspapers. It's also a period if you're going to seek a forward. I mean, imagine most people, if they're invited to write a forward to enhance your book, a forward should. Sorry, I don't mean to speak like Yoda. There's a lot that can go on, even to the point where you can start marketing and you can start split testing your marketing. So by the end of 1, 3, 6 months, when your book actually launches, you know what marketing works. You've split tested ads, you've got some traction. So it's really, that's clearly to me the most neglected. Very often, sometimes I'll meet an author and they had no idea pre-launch or post-launch for that matter, which is less of a stage, but that you could do it. Actually, the beta readers is another one of those things that sort of evolved out of a traditional publishing best practice of the on-staff developmental editor. If you don't have that, let's say you can't afford that, because editing can be expensive, but if it's well chosen, it's more than worth it. In fact, it's vital. You can do a beta reader period, even with friends, and get invaluable feedback, particularly from a 30,000-foot view as to problems, confusions, and the strengths as well of your book. And when you come out of a successful pre-launch period, I only found this out in practice. All those things we mentioned, the results are fairly obvious, reviews and marketing and, a forward. One of the things I found in practice that you get out of a good pre-launch period is author confidence.
Mm-hmm.
So by the time your book is released, there's no hesitate. You kind of have an idea of how it's going to be received. And one for one, I've seen that follow through. So you have an opportunity, rather than throw it out there and be embarrassed or upset about something, it's an opportunity to perfect it.
Yeah, for sure. That's interesting that you group those things into pre-launch, because I kind of just think of a lot of those activities as things during, I call it my launch process, but I guess you're right. It needs to be done before you got that book live, certainly before you do advertising and things like that.
Sure.
So the main steps you're thinking about that pre-launch are getting editorial reviews. That's really interesting. Getting your advanced reviewers as well, and basically building that conversation and the buzz around the book a little bit. I think that's kind of what you're saying with the pre-launch. Do you have any particular tactics you use during that pre-launch that you think you have to be doing and you shouldn't really be neglecting? Just a quick shout out to all the romance authors out there. Now, if you're tired of shouting into the void every time you launch a brand new romance book, then let myromancereads.com do the shouting for you. They have a list of over 18,000 romance readers who love getting books when they're on discounts or on the free promotion. And it goes into their inbox every single day. It's got an amazing open rate, and every promotion gets on average over 600 clicks. That's a lot of new readers for your new series of romance books. So head to myromancereads.com where you can sign up today.
Yeah, that's a great question, and I think it goes back to my view is every author, every book has specific goals. They have specific ideas, reasons why they're publishing. So everything is catered to that. For some, a pre-launch period might not be recommended, I suppose. But as far as what you do during that period, and your terminology, my terminology, this is all valid. You
Yeah.
know, you've found a process. I've found this process that helps me organize a project, and it makes it very handy to share. But I'm sure there are other, authors like yourself who found a process that works for them. And that's the nice thing, once I work with someone, very often they don't need me for the second book, or they'll need me much less. You get through this sort of the hump of that first book, and everything really clears up. And my wish for people then is that they keep publishing. So, but as far as remind me the question, as far as vital ingredients in the pre-launch.
Yeah, so in the pre-launch, are there any things that you think people just need to do? Like, are there any activities that people maybe neglect a little bit, but they definitely have to be doing?
Yeah, well, I think the most basic part of it is the beta readers, is getting a full, at least first edited. If you're on a budget, you might not do a proofread before your pre-launch, for example. In
Yeah,
fact, if you find what's called an advanced review copy or an ARC, or in the
yeah,
business it's called a galley, I found one from time to time you find them. I found one in a thrift store or used bookstore for The Tipping Point by Malcolm Gladwell, and it had the cover that they ended up going with. But when you open the book, and this is what I do, what we do, we prepare a copy like this. With self-publishing, it's most often digital that you're going to share, a PDF generally. But you can print a book and share it in print if you're doing a little more extended pre-launch. But getting beta feedback, I would say if you had to choose one thing from a pre-launch period, it would be that. That's where you get the confidence. That's where you get the little road corrections, and it's not complicated. You're asking people. I generally ask a dichotomy of basically three questions, which as a dichotomy turns into six. What'd you like the best? What'd you like the least? What made a lot of sense? What was confusing? How could it be better? Some very basic overview questions. Inevitably, your beta readers will get back with you with spelling and grammar suggestions as well, which isn't really what you're looking for, but it's handy when they come up. So I mentioned the proofread. You can do that before your pre-launch. I like to do it after the beta reader, right after the pre-launch. And proofreaders are gifted people, frankly. So you want to find somebody with sort of that eagle eye for finding things. And I know a couple of them now, but they're invaluable. Otherwise, things can slip through. So I would say the beta reader thing. But there
yeah,
are many, many. I mean, it could go as far as if you have a national bestseller strategy, which is different than an Amazon bestseller strategy, much different, actually diametrically opposed, different, then your pre-launch period becomes very crucial, and it should be probably at least 6 months, at least three. In the old days, I talked to an old-time publicist when I got into the business, I guess. He was in his 80s or so and loved his career, and he was a publicist. The old-time publicists really wanted your book for a year once it was done. They wanted a year for the marketing and the publicity and so on, and then very often it would come out in hardcover alone for reasons. I don't know. It's a
yeah.
fascinating industry.
It sounds like it's changed quite a lot in the 15 years or so since you started talking about this.
Yeah, it's fascinating. Like I was a real estate broker in another life, and the internet listings, it was all threatening to change things in very large and disruptive ways. And I really believed that everything was going to change. I was younger. I really believed everything was going to fundamentally change. What I found out, if I look back now, some of the basics didn't change at all, but some of the tactics have changed wildly. So it's like that in publishing. Traditional publishers are still around. I think they always will be. I think they serve a vital role, actually. There 15 years ago, there was a real contentiousness between tradition. I think traditional publishers at the time regarded self-publishing as a threat,
Possibly, yeah.
and there was a real something to contend with. It was almost an embarrassment to be self-published 15 years ago, but that is completely turned on its head. There are very successful traditionally published authors. Mark Dawson's a great example. Others who had very lucrative traditional deals. I worked with a New York Times best-selling author on a sideline self-published project, which was very interesting. It didn't interfere with her traditional deal. This was a different genre and so on. So they really have self-publishing has really risen to a profession and done right, a prestigious profession with a whole host of advantages over. I always 99% of the time, anyone with their first book, I recommend you self-publish
Yeah.
first.
Yeah, definitely. So in your Book Dude series, you split it into 3 books. So what do each of the books cover, and why have you split it into 3?
Sure, it may turn into 4 probably now in retrospect and looking back, but the idea was I mentioned that 3-stage process. So after 10, 12 years, I started managing a little more for some of my author clients and for myself. Got into platform development and realized probably the biggest mistake authors make is not dividing the activity into the art and the business and treating it like a business. And if you are a pure artist and don't want to treat it like a business, that's fine too, but find someone who will handle that for you. And you can cost effectively do that for free on the cheap or with prominent assistance. But I've come now to understand it as well, I liken it to 3 stages: the product, the platform, the publicity. And that would basically be the main subject matter of books 2, 3, and 4, for example.
Yeah.
And book 1, The Modern Author, which is the one that's out now, does go into the book creation cycle that I call it, with those 10 stages, and has a bit on each one. So you can completely publish your own book with confidence and professionally just with that book. But I would almost call it book 0 because
Okay.
it brings you up to date, you know, on these terms and so on.
So who's the sort of person that should be buying that book? That'd be someone who wants to write a book. They've got an idea, but they don't know exactly the steps they should be doing to self-publish. Is that right?
Yes, I would say certainly I would say every author, and that's not like a sales pitch, particularly first-time authors, of course.
Yeah.
But I do meet people when you talk about published authors, there's a lot of heartbreak out there. I think people, it's a very sexy idea, right? To publish a book, very exciting. Probably the gut punch that sometimes comes is you find out it's still got to be marketed. You're basically at zero. You're a drop in the ocean. Frankly, there are a couple million books published each year, so it's gotten to where, and more people are reading. I just read an article today by Ricardo Lafette, one of the founders of Readsy,
Yeah.
and I had
Yeah.
right. I had a great book on author marketing, but he pointed out, and I never considered. I was aware that more and more people were reading. I was aware that a couple million books now. I remember when we passed the 1 million mark of published books in a year. He pointed out the demand for reading is increasing even faster than the supply of books. So that's good news for us. But you still have to differentiate it. My favorite analogy is I met a guy selling hot sauce at a trade show, at a county fair or something. And there he is with his wife, his overalls, he's got hot sauce. And he had gotten his sauce professionally produced, labeled, and on the shelves at Publix, which is our main grocery chain here in Florida, Georgia. And he quickly found out it was one thing to get into Publix, but he found out he still had to market. It wasn't as lucrative as he had hoped. So the way I try to help with that aspect of your release and so on is you're a drop in the ocean. You get on the shelf. Yes, you're on Amazon, for example, or in Barnes and Noble. Now, a couple of things can happen. It generally goes one of two ways. One is the slow boat sort of, where you got to build a platform and you create a business around it. It's a product. The other one is the lightning strike. And this is where, Oprah has you on, and midnight your phone's blowing up and there's people in your house and your life is forever changed, right? That happens. It's called a lightning strike. Well, we can't necessarily dictate where lightning strikes, but we can promote getting struck by lightning. So you can walk around with a metal suit and a kite, and there are things you can do by that metaphor to increase your chances of the lightning strike. But I would put those things in the publicity category, where you're not relying on them. You rely on your marketing and your platform growth, and you provide for possibilities of getting struck by lightning in a good way.
Yeah. I like that. That should be a quote. I can't make you get struck by lightning, but we can provide the possibilities for you to get struck by lightning.
Right. Raise your odds.
Yeah. Well, great. I mean, this has been a good chat. I mean, I've already read some of the books, so it's for people who are, especially new authors, who don't know what they're doing and want to really learn those basic concepts about self-publishing. It's a great place to start, and it will tell you everything you need to know and how the market's changed, and yeah, it will really get you up to speed before you start the work of actually writing and doing all that marketing and things like that. So it's a great book. So thank you for sharing it with me.
Thank you very much. And it's a great platform you have here. I really appreciate being a guest. And yeah, and I feel compelled to mention, like with your Amazon ads platform, I think it's kind of vital, because a lot of people get involved and they try to promote and they get frustrated. That's the other segment I think could benefit from my book and from your service, because as self-published authors, a lot of it's very hands-on, and sometimes some assistance with that is warranted.
Yeah, that's the reason we created that software in the first place, was because people were struggling with their ads and didn't know where to start. So yeah, thank you for mentioning that. So I tend not to speak about it on this podcast too much, because I want to focus on other people's learnings. But if you're going to speak about it, then I won't stop you.
Oh yeah, no, it fits perfectly. It's the kind of service that, because I've been through that with Amazon ads, and you tend to give up if it gets too, you don't see rewards. Results are the best motivator. So yeah, it'll help you get there quicker. That's for sure.
Definitely. Yeah. Well, thanks for joining us. If people want to get in touch with you, where's the best place for them to do that?
My website, www.rodneymilescom.
Great. Well, thanks. We'll put a link to that in the show notes, but it was great to chat to you, and we'll speak again soon.
Thanks so much. Thanks, Teddy.
Thank you so much for tuning into the Publishing Performance Podcast. I really hope you found today's episode inspiring. I love chatting to authors, writers, and people in the publishing world. Now, just before we wrap up, let me tell you about Publishing Performance, the #1 platform for authors who want to increase Amazon book sales, but are not really sure where to start. Now, this show is all about helping you to sell more books. And if you're looking to boost your publishing game and to maximize your book's potential on Amazon, then Publishing Performance is designed to help authors just like you to grow your readership and to reach a much wider audience. Now, I know that Amazon ads can be slightly complicated, which is why Publishing Performance is like having a personalized ad account manager to create your ad campaigns, to choose your best keywords, and to make adjustments in real time. Now, if you're investing in ads, you really want to make sure that your investment is being used effectively. And Publishing Performance does just that. It aims to make your budget go further, improve your organic rank, and target keywords more effectively. Just go to publishingperformance.com to get started with Amazon ads for just $1. Thank you so much for tuning into the Publishing Performance Show. I really hope you found today's episode inspiring. I absolutely love chatting to authors, writers, and people in the publishing world. Now, just before we wrap up, I want to tell you about our Publishing Performance Starter Packs. These are curated episodes and collections organised by topic that makes it super easy to find the exact content you're looking for. So whether you're wanting to deep dive into marketing strategies, explore productivity techniques, or focus on any specific area of publishing, we've organised our episodes into targeted playlists just for you. And you can find these all at teddyagsmith.com. And also, whilst you're here, let me tell you about Publishing Performance. It's the #1 platform for authors who want to increase Amazon book sales but aren't really sure where to start. Now, this show is all about helping you to sell more books, and if you're looking to boost your publishing game and to maximise your book's potential on Amazon, then Publishing Performance is designed to help authors just like you to grow your readership and to reach a much wider audience. Now, I know that Amazon ads can be slightly complicated, which is why Publishing Performance is like having a personalised ad account manager to create your ad campaigns for you, to choose your best keywords and to make adjustments in real time and to optimise them over time to save you money and to make more sales. Now, if you're investing in ads, you really want to make sure your investment is being used effectively, and Publishing Performance does just that. It aims to make your budget go further, improve your organic rank, and target keywords more effectively. You can get started with Amazon ads for free for 30 days at publishingperformance.com, and there's a link in the show notes to get that free 30 days trial. Thank you so much for tuning into the Publishing Performance Show. I really hope you found today's episode inspiring. I absolutely love chatting to authors, writers, and people in the publishing world. Now, just before we wrap up, I want to tell you about our Publishing Performance Starter Packs. These are curated episodes and collections organised by topic that makes it super easy to find the exact content you're looking for. So whether you're wanting to deep dive into marketing strategies, explore productivity techniques, or focus on any specific area of publishing, we've organised our episodes into targeted playlists just for you. And you can find these all at teddyagsmith.com. And also, whilst you're here, let me tell you about Publishing Performance. It's the #1 platform for authors who want to increase Amazon book sales but aren't really sure where to start. Now, this show is all about helping you to sell more books, and if you're looking to boost your publishing game and to maximise your book's potential on Amazon, then Publishing Performance is designed to help authors just like you to grow your readership and to reach a much wider audience. Now, I know that Amazon ads can be slightly complicated, which is why Publishing Performance is like having a personalised ad account manager to create your ad campaigns for you, to choose your best keywords and to make adjustments in real time and to optimise them over time to save you money and to make more sales. Now, if you're investing in ads, you really want to make sure your investment is being used effectively, and Publishing Performance does just that. It aims to make your budget go further, improve your organic rank, and target keywords more effectively. You can get started with Amazon ads for free for 30 days at publishingperformance.com, and there's a link in the show notes to get that free 30 days trial.